Hey everyone, I wanted to talk to you about one of the swords in my collection today. This is a Scottish broadsword, and this is the style of sword that would have been used during the Jacobite uprising. And at the Battle of Culloden, which was the final battle of the uprising on April 16th, 1746, this is the kind of sword that the Scots would have been using. In fact, we think this is one of the swords that was actually at the battlefield. A broadsword is a single-handed sword with a complex hilt or cage over the hand. It has two edges and it has a long blade that goes from a wide shoulder to a narrower point. This sword has a patina on it, and because of this patina, we think this is what's called a thatch sword. Now, that's not thatch like the video game. This is the thatch of the cottage. After the battle, Jacobite forces broke. They scattered back to the Highlands. And many of their swords, they would shove into the thatch of their cottages to hide them from the British forces. Some of them were actually used as fence posts. And so they were just used to hold a fence together because they were no longer being used for warfare. This sword has the original leather handle. It doesn't have the wire wrap around the handle anymore, and it has what's called a distal taper. Swords today are built differently than they were historically. The sword of the 18th century has this distal taper, and what that is we're used to seeing a blade start wide at the handle and it narrows down to the point. The distal taper is that it does it on this line as well. So the metal itself is thicker here at the top of the sword, the forte, than it is down here at the point of the sword, the foible or the débelé. In fact, this gets so thin, you can actually just bend that with your fingers. Swords, historically, were not razor blades, nor were they lightsabers. So they didn't have this edge that would just cut through things. They were sharp. A friend of mine has a sword from a Scotsman during the Jacobite uprising that was used to cut a British soldier's head in half through his helmet. And it's just an amazing story, and the sword held up. On this sword, right here, you can still see there's nicks in the blade. Here's several down here. Now, the forte, this portion here, is called forte because it's strong, and you defend with your forte. You offend with your foible, and you'll see damage to the blade here at the foible as well. A lot of that is probably from hitting the forte of other people's swords. This sword has markings on the blade on each side, and what those markings say is Andrea Ferrara. Now, Andrea Ferrara was a very famous sword maker of the 16th and late 16th, early 17th century. Think of him kind of like the Gucci for swords. He was so good that people would mark their swords with his name so that they could charge more for it. I don't know if this is an Andrea Ferrara sword or not. It is marked with it, and it does have what looks like the markings for the smith, but again, it's hard to say because it was such a forged signature. The handle, the cage, has the heart motif that is very common and popular of this style and this period of sword. It also has the back quilling. These were often broken off here so that when somebody was standing at kind of a parade rest with their sword straight up and down, this wouldn't bite into their wrist. It's a beautiful sword. The whole thing weighs about 2.5 pounds. And this is the style of sword that was made very famous and popular in today's world in the Outlander series. So this is the type of sword that was used by the Scottish soldier of the early to mid 18th century. I hope you enjoyed the look at my sword. It's just an amazing piece of artwork. It went through life and death, and it's still here, and the craftsmanship is just, it's hard to match it in today's world. Thanks for looking at the sword with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.